We need to address the critical causes behind the financial crisis of the last several years, and we need to do it right and in a bipartisan way. Unfortunately, Madam President, we're not on that path yet. The Dodd bill, which the President and Chairman Dodd and others are trying to push to the floor, is a purely partisan approach. And unfortunately, it gets a lot of the bigger issues wrong. First, and perhaps most importantly, Madam President, the Dodd bill expands too big to fail. It doesn't end it. The Dodd bill ensures more future bailouts. It doesn't get rid of the need for bailouts. My second big concern is that the Dodd bill creates a new all-powerful super bureaucracy with powers well beyond what's necessary to fix the problems that led to the last crisis. And finally, Madam President, another big problem with the Dodd bill is that it does nothing to fix other key causes of the crisis. For instance, it does nothing about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We have a so-called comprehensive bill, multiple titles, thousands, tens of thousands of words, hundreds of pages, and the words Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are never included, are nowhere to be found. And finally, nothing on lending standards, underwriting standards, exactly what Senator Isaacson was talking about. The core fundamental problem behind the last financial crisis was that all sorts of loans were written that any reasonable person would know from the outset had no chance of making it. Again, we need regulatory reform, but we need it zeroed in on the real problems, and we need a strong bipartisan approach, not a highly partisan approach. And many of us think these are the basic principles of true regulatory reform, permanently ending bailouts and too big to fail, which the Dodd bill clearly does not do. Ending all of the bailout authorities of the Federal Reserve and FDIC, because if they still have those authorities, they will use them in the future. Enhancing consumer protection without creating this huge new super bureaucracy that goes well beyond what's needed to address the causes of the crisis. Creating greater transparency for derivatives while allowing businesses to manage risk, as Senator Judd Gregg explained. Begin to address Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Establish minimum lending standards for mortgages. That was a key cause of the crisis. It's ridiculous for that to not be addressed in a so-called comprehensive reform bill. Increased competition for credit rating agencies. We saw significant problems there, and dramatically improved coordination and communication among the regulators. Madam President, this would be an approach targeted on the real problems, not a bill using the last financial crisis as an excuse to reach another pre-existing agenda. This would be a bipartisan approach which the American people can support. And I hope, Madam President, this will become the outline of the approach the Senate adopts as we move forward.